Art is to console those who are broken by life. A quote by Vincent van Gogh. But what does Van Gogh have to do with this video? Well, because it sums up what this is about. Vincent van Gogh was an artist's artist, a great storyteller that transformed his pain into beautiful works of art for others to enjoy. Don't get me wrong, all film and art is subjective, however. The comfort film is the most defendable piece that you can cherish. People consume art as an escape for their everyday struggles. The comfort film is no different. But some do it better than others. It can be a film that is as artistic and profound as something like Goodfellas, watching a man dive into the mob with a flourishing lifestyle, getting what he wants when he wants through power, loyalty, and then eventually betrayal. Watching the downfall of the once powerful lifestyle dwindle into becoming a nobody. Or it can be as dumb as fun as the live-action Scooby-Doo movies. Two movies with a fun plot and a whole lot of heart to give for these beloved characters. Being full-on nostalgic only adds to the comfort that they provide. I understand that there is no wrong answer to what you think is good. All art is subjective. However, people have debates on what are the best movies of the year, the best horror movies of all time, the best comedies of all time. Comfort films are not debated at all because they are the most personal. Comfort movies are movies you've seen time and time again. Some of them can be awful flicks, but just too much fun. Some of them can just be nostalgic for its time, or maybe the story is so relatable to you that you can't help but to feel like it's a warm blanket over you. Maybe it was first watched at a specific time that you miss. Whatever the case may be, comfort movies are movies that you've seen countless times, where you know the lines, you put them on when you're down, you put them on when you're happy. They are what is most comforting to you. This is the art of comfort film. I have an entire list of comfort films on my letterbox, but I'm not going to be speaking about them. This is not a discussion about my comfort films, rather than what do these comfort films do for me. But my goal here is not necessarily just to talk about what felt most comforting. It's more so to get into the ideas as to why comfort films are just as important as intellectual films. The most common comfort films tend to be ones that are relatable or have something that people are missing. The first thing that comes to mind is romance, which comes up a lot on people's comfort films. Something I find interesting is how romance or rom-coms as a whole are mostly complained about how unrealistic they are. Sure, we have movies where we have superpowers, supernatural things going on, monster movies, but romance films don't have any of that. They're grounded movies that take place in the real world. However, people are most likely to complain about how unrealistic people act, which is a paradox because that's also why people love romance films. They love how unreal they are. Some people want to be in their shoes or enjoy the cheesy nature of how things transpire. They wish it were that easy, or they wish that they had the confidence that certain character had. Rye Lane, a British rom-com that no one has really watched. One of my favorite comfort movies that I watched endless amount of times. With an 82-minute runtime, a perfectly tight script, actors with great chemistry, a romance that blossoms in a unique setting/way. I watched this during a period where a relationship was clearly failing. The characters are instantly relatable, giving us a reason to care for them. There is this natural way of how these characters speak to one another that feels like it's possible to meet people that way. After seeing this for the first time, I loved it and I never watched it again. I couldn't help myself but to watch it a couple times a week. It wasn't just the fact that the film was wonderful. It was a spark that Dom and Yas had for each other that I craved myself. It brought this sort of spark in me that one day it'll happen again. Films always help me through tough times, and Rye Lane was one of those main pieces that helped me through a breakup. The film wasn't intended for an audience going through a breakup. It's a film about connection, navigating hardships, and communication. A film about the complete opposite of what I was going through somehow helped me through this adolescent period. A friend of mine who has a degree in criminal justice, Gabriel Vargas, shared a couple comfort films with me, those being the Scooby-Doo movies. His deep explanation was this. Jokes aside, when I asked him as to why he chose these movies, he said, "Honestly, I would say it's mostly due to the nostalgia. They're simple movies that don't take themselves too seriously, and yet they have a lot of heart. It's a movie about a group of friends that stick together, and it's pretty funny to this day. It makes me feel like I'm back in a simpler time where I didn't have to worry about much. Also, Mr. Bean is in it. That's pretty funny. As a kid, I wasn't very social, and I didn't have too many friends to go out with. So it felt nice to see a group of friends like the Scooby-Doo gang stick around together even when they got mad at each other. They always got each other's backs. It showed me what friends should be like, so now whenever I watch the Scooby-Doo movies, it feels like I'm visiting an old friend and I'm able to relax and forget about anything around me. It helps lift the burden of reality, even if it's just for a couple hours." When asking him how they compare to a regular film that he doesn't consider a comfort film but he really likes, he said, "I really like No Country for Old Men, but it's not a comfort film. I feel like No Country for Old Men is way too serious with themes about growing old, having done the right thing, being scared of your own age and morality, and it leaves you feeling more reflective than anything. Scooby-Doo doesn't ask me to think about that. It's just a talking dog." Another great friend of mine, Ivan, who also has his movie channel that you should check out, link in bio. He shares a comfort film with me, a film that I think is one of the best movies ever made, and it's not necessarily a traditional comfort film. It is a movie that I have seen countless times, and it's more of a philosophical film. That film being Good Will Hunting. Mr. Ivan, you have spoken that Good Will Hunting is your comfort film, which is one of mine too. But it's definitely a philosophical film, definitely on the side of intellectual art rather than just goofy fun. Why is something like Good Will Hunting a comfort film for you?
For me, Good Will Hunting is a comfort film because it's a movie I can relate to a lot. The character Will Hunting, played by Matt Damon, is this character that, he's a janitor at a college, and yet he has this hidden potential where he's practically a genius. And I feel like I relate a lot to that because growing up, my parents kind of painted me out to be this genius because I was getting these really good grades and I was reading all these books, and I had random knowledge about things like geography at like 6 years old, and they thought I was some kind of genius. And then as I was growing up, I kind of felt pressured by that, and it made me feel like I wasn't going to reach that same potential that my parents kind of painted me out to have. And then that was always subconsciously in the back of my mind. So every time I would fail or every time I would, do something wrong, I always had the idea of disappointing my parents in my mind. And I think that's something Will had, where he was very, fearful or reluctant to use this genius ability that he had because he felt like, with all the trauma that he went through, he wasn't very deserving of that. I also really like, Robin Williams' character as the therapist because of the way he spoke about romance and how he was talking about his wife. It was a beautiful way to describe the love he had for this person that meant so much to him. And I would like to, be able to speak about someone that way in the future, maybe, hopefully, with my wife. That little catchphrase that I gotta see about a girl is something super relatable, where when you're willing to drop anything for them is kind of the ideal way to love someone. It's not your typical comfort movie. It's not a silly, goofy, fun time. And it did change me as a person and the way I viewed myself, the way I viewed love. And it keeps me pushing to be a better version of myself because of watching this film.
You look at other movies that you think are on the same level of quality, but you wouldn't consider a comfort film. How does that compare? Why is this a comfort film compared to something else that you think is, one of the best films of all time?
With other movies, maybe I don't quite see myself as the character. I just see a character, struggling or doing well, but I don't really see myself in that character. With a character like Will Hunting, I do see myself. So I could picture myself with that too, even with the trauma he was going through, with the fear of him trying to love the girl Skylar. I also kind of feel like I share the fear of putting myself out there out of the fear of rejection, which is, I feel like, what he had at some point. He felt like he was undeserving of that romance. He felt like, she was too perfect and he didn't deserve that. And then Robin Williams kind of humbles him and says, she's not perfect and you're not either, but it's what you guys find amongst yourselves. The image of the man I want to be, has those qualities that this movie was teaching me to have. So that's why I feel like this is a little bit different than maybe a more intellectual film where I'm not really relating to it as much.
As I said before, I'm not going to be going through every single comfort film of mine, but to speak about a few, Crazy Stupid Love and The Big Sick are movies that did something for me during a breakup that Riley couldn't. Diary of the Wimpy Kid, Project Rules specifically, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1990 helped me reimagine the feeling of being a kid again. There's many others, and if you want to check out the entire list, it's going to be on my letterbox. But some films just have that beauty to them that you don't have a specific reason as to why they're so comforting. Every single particle of their existence somehow has you sinking into the most comforting bed. Perks of Being a Wallflower is not only one of the most personal films for me, but I also think it's one of the greatest films ever made. We meet Charlie, a freshman in high school with clear PTSD, trying to survive his first year of high school when he meets a small group of artsy seniors who take him under their wing. They teach him how to find and be himself. Besides Edward Scissorhands, Charlie is the most relatable character in film history for me. I don't know what it is, but I relate to him the most in his happiest moments and his darkest moments. There's sort of this disconnection towards people, and there's maybe only one or two that he's able to fully connect with. It's not that he can't connect with his own family, it's just that he can't connect with them as well as others. Without spoiling, we are given a big reason as to why that is. He finds an instant connection with these people who treat him like if they've known him for years. Being an introvert as a child and watching this as a preteen, which was around the time that I was trying to be more of an extrovert, it made me connect with this character even more. I believe that I navigate life trying to say the right thing instead of being myself. Charlie feels like a fish in a fish tank. It almost feels like he's looking back and forth at the high school halls, not knowing where to go, not knowing what to do. And I can't help but to feel that every second that I'm awake. I project one thing and hide the other. A very small detail early in the film is when Charlie is talking about music with Sam and Patrick, until they ask him this.
What about Ides? You love Ides, right?
Yeah, of course, they're great.
Not a band, Charlie.
It's a record store downtown. Things sound so much better on vinyl.
With some context, Charlie has no friends, and the only other friend he had offed himself a year prior. In this small scene, he actually was getting somewhere with these people, and he didn't want to say the wrong thing and fuck it up. So he tries saying the right thing only for it to be wrong. I'm a bit of a romantic myself, and this added layer of romance that has both immature and mature aspects only adds to the relatability. The simple shot of how he sees Sam for the first time has at least hit home for how you saw someone yourself. I also love the cinematography in this. It has this sort of grain to it that makes me feel like it was shot in the 90s, which it takes place in. It has this sort of nostalgia to it, even though I was never living in the 90s, yet feels familiar. Perhaps I'll never get to where Charlie is at the end of the film. Perhaps I never will. However, I can say that this film never fails to give me that feeling of introspection. Ever since I was young, I always feared that I would only become a memory. Cherishing or appreciating good moments just wasn't enough because I knew eventually it would end. Your life is only as good as the memories you provide yourself and others. This taught me that we are only memories. Smiles are temporary, but so is sadness. Some may ask, what is the difference between your favorite movie of all time and a movie that is both that and a comfort film? To that I would say, it's not just the pillow that you sleep on. It's not just the blanket that you get covered with. It's not just the mattress you lay on. It becomes a part of you. Something that you cherish in your heart, and has a hand in your growth as a person. By the end of the film, the character of Charlie has inspired how I carry myself, and how I hope I can be half the man he is. That is the true art of comfort films.